What's up, y'all? It's Ty back here with another video. And in this video today, guys, we're going to be reacting to the worst recent trade for all 30 NBA teams, each and every one of them. I'm going to be interested to see what Mike Korzemba has to say is the worst trade for each and every team. Make sure to go check his channel out. That will be down below in the description as well.
Welcome to the worst recent trades in NBA.
First up, the Atlanta Hawks.
With a 7-year window here, so let's waste no time and start with the Atlanta Hawks, who fumbled
I like it. He gets right into it.
horrendously when they drafted Luka Doncic with the number 3 pick in the 2018 draft and traded him for Trae Young. Trae and DeJounte Murray have recently struggled to
It's bad. I mean, a couple years ago it didn't look as bad. Now it's horrible.
Together
It's
as
horrible.
the Hawks went from the Eastern Conference Finals in 2021 to out of the playoffs in 2024. With Luka, Atlanta would not only have a franchise player that is about to make his 5th straight first-team All-NBA, but also it is
going to
very
finals.
possible that in the 2021 Eastern Conference Finals against the Bucks, Luka could have put them over the top, as the Hawks did lose in 6 games, and from there, the Bucks won the championship. So Luka could have been a title winner at the age of 21, and Atlanta could have had their first ring since 1958 with a franchise player carrying them for the foreseeable future.
Instead, Luka's doing that for the Mavs right now.
The Boston Celtics have made some incredible moves recently. They have locked in a title contender for this current season and the near future. However, their team could have been even better if they had not traded their 30th pick in Desmond Bane along with Enes Kanter in a move that was made to open up cap space to sign Tristan Thompson.
Ooh, that's bad, because Desmond Bane is really good.
Thompson spent just 1 year in Boston, while Desmond Bane averaged over 18 points per game in his 2nd season, and in year 4 he averaged 23.7 points, 5.5 assists, and 4.4 rebounds per game. As we know, Boston has had their playoff struggles as of late. Adding Bane to the Celtics' young core could have put them over the top in the last few playoffs, and with their current team, it could have made them truly unstoppable.
Their current team is truly unstoppable anyways.
The Brooklyn Nets went all in on a big 3 of Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden, but
The Nets are a disaster. If you think you have Harden, Kyrie, and KD, and now they got back what they did, it's kind of sad.
easily. The Harden trade was the most costly of this failed experiment. As we know, this big 3 did not work at all together. There was turmoil. They all ended up getting traded to different teams. But in order to get James Harden, the Nets gave up 7 first-round picks to the Rockets.
Think about that. 7 first-round picks. That is ridiculous.
And with this, they do not outright own their first-round pick until 2028. A horrible situation for a bad roster to be in, as what are you even
I'm not gonna lie, when they were healthy, they were so good though.
tanking for? To give another team a great pick? On top of this, it was James Harden who was the first to request out of this big 3, the move that broke them up and turned them from a possible title contender to now a bottom dweller in the East.
They're bad.
Harden's trade demand ended up landing the Nets Ben Simmons, a man considered to be the worst contract in basketball.
And honestly, guys, I thought Ben Simmons would revamp his career, and it just didn't happen.
With Brooklyn, Simmons played just 15 games this year, averaged 6.1 points per game, and made $37.8 million. Just doing quick math, that's over $2 million a game. At least when trading Durant
That's
away,
ridiculous.
the Nets got Mikal Bridges and several of the Suns' future draft
I mean, they got quite a bit from KD. I'm not gonna lie, they got a lot.
picks. Harden cost them their draft pick future and only got them a salary cap killer. In the 2018 draft, the Charlotte Hornets had a choice. Keep Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, an MVP candidate in 2024,
He's so
who has
good.
become a true franchise star for the Oklahoma City Thunder, or trade him for Miles Bridges, a man who has brought them disgrace through his off-court action.
Man, and honestly, is it necessarily the fault of, the Charlotte Hornets that Miles Bridges is doing this? No. But it's bad. It's bad, especially when you have SGA. It's bad.
The Hornets messed this one up, plain and simple. Shai looks like he will be a
Shai
superstar
is an
franchise
MVP,
guy
man.
for years to come. The pairing of LaMelo and Shai may have worked. It may not have worked. Worst case scenario, LaMelo Ball would then become a tremendous trade asset. What we do know for certain is that having both of them on their roster would have put the franchise.
I think a healthy LaMelo and a healthy Shai could have worked. I genuinely do.
Speaking of the worst trades in recent history,
This dude
though, at the
votes,
trade deadline of the 2021 season, the Chicago Bulls attempted to speed up their rebuild and gave up Wendell Carter Jr., who was their 7th pick in the 2018 draft.
I'm gonna be honest, Wendell Carter Jr. is just as good as Vooch, by the way.
And also their 2021 and 2023 first-round picks to the Magic for Nikola Vucevic. Vooch was an all-star in Orlando, but for the Bulls, he has just been above average, as Chicago, even
if that, like defensively, is not good.
Levine and DeMar DeRozan have never pushed to the top of the East and were in the play-in game this year. Meanwhile, Orlando, who was in a much worse position and was supposed to be rebuilding, as this trade was supposed to.
This
push
is a great
Chicago
trade
to
for the Magic.
Top of the Eastern Conference,
great trade for the
has
Magic.
become one of the NBA's biggest success stories themselves. Wendell Carter Jr. has averaged a solid.
That's what I'm saying. He's been nearly just as good as Vooch. Hasn't really stayed healthy. Has hurt him a little bit, but he's been solid.
Double-double for the Magic as a dependable center. The 2023 pick Orlando got turned into the 11th pick in the draft in Jet Howard. Results remain to be seen with him.
Never
Most
really
devastating
did
for the
anything.
Bulls, though, is that the 2021 pick they gave up became Franz Wagner. Franz
He's gonna
is
be
one
a
of the
star,
NBA's
man.
most underrated young stars, as he is the
He's gonna be a
second
star.
best player on a Magic team that finished 5th in the East this year. Wagner this season
Wagner's
averaged
good,
19.7 points, 5.3
He gotta
rebounds,
shoot better,
3.7
but
assists per
he's
game.
gonna be good.
He's just 22 years old, and he's a versatile 6'10" wing/big. Essentially everything you would want in a modern-day young player.
Yeah,
would
he
currently
is.
Be
Gotta
the
shoot
best
better, but-
prospect, maybe the best player on Chicago's roster. This was a major fail. For the Cleveland Cavaliers, did Kyrie Irving demand a trade away from them? Yes. He even went as far as to say in the 2017 offseason that if he was not traded, he would get surgery that
Which is crazy to say. Like, it's crazy. Where Kyrie's at now, obviously, is good, but this is a crazy thing to say or
would
do.
force him to miss the entire 2018 year. LeBron at the time was reportedly very hurt and shocked by all of this news. Kyrie, though, wanted to play for his own team and did not like the fact that the media was treating him like LeBron's son.
Kristen called LeBron a great father after the Chicago game. What?
Great father. Oh, a great father.
Father.
Oh, I thought you. Oh, my bad. I interpreted that completely wrong. I thought you said he was a great father to him. I was like, what?
So what type of parental role has he played for you and your teammates, LeBron?
Oh, okay. So you.
Like, I think Kyrie initially thought that's what the question was. And it's like, nah, LeBron's actually a good dad. And then she went right back at him like, yeah, father figure to you. No man's going to want you to say that to him. Like, what?
I have one father. That's my dad, Redick Irving.
The trade the Cavs made, though, could not have been worse for Cleveland, as after sorting through several trade packages, they landed on Isaiah.
And maybe it's me, because Kyrie got traded for a bag of chips again. But this is a horrible trade package. And I know they want to compete. They wanted to compete now, but that's horrible.
Thomas, who went from averaging 30 points per game to the Celtics to becoming a huge negative for the Cavs. Isaiah's usage rate in a contract year still remained near the top of the NBA, but when he was on the court with Cleveland, his team's offense ranked 24th in the NBA and their defense ranked dead last.
He was
Cleveland
not
would
good.
actually cut bait with Isaiah after he played just 15 games with the team. Any other package for a prime Kyrie Irving would have given the Cavs a much
Kyrie was so cold, man.
better chance at a title in LeBron's final year. Maybe an incredible deal would have even kept him on the Cavs instead of seeing him go to the Lakers. The Dallas Mavericks give us one of the smaller trades in this video. Keep in mind, we are doing a 7-year window, so not everyone is going to have a horrible trade. And
Yeah,
many
7
would
years
think that
isn't
the
that
Mavericks'
crazy.
worst trade would be Kristaps Porzingis. The thing is, though,
That one was bad. I'm not going to lie. KP for basically Dinwiddie is horrible.
that trade got them Spencer Dinwiddie, and Spencer Dinwiddie got them Kyrie Irving. So instead, I will say the Mavs'
I mean,
worst
I guess, but that still is crazy. What is this?
recent trade was a small but impactful one, as when Dallas moved Seth Curry, they gave up a much-needed three-point shooter who could have really helped them in the playoffs, especially in 2022 during their Western Conference
on, man.
Finals
What?
run when they ran out of gas. In that series, Seth could have given them the extra three-point shooting they needed, as that was when Seth was in his absolute prime.
Bro, we're talking about Seth Curry, who doesn't even play anymore. No. The worst trade gotta be that KP one. It's gotta be. Like, Dinwiddie for KP is crazy. What? No.
Instead, Seth went on to play really well for the Sixers, and he also became a main piece non-negotiable in the trade for James Harden, which allowed the Sixers to get out of Ben Simmons' contract. Again, a smaller trade though. For the Denver Nuggets, we have a very simple trade. In the 2017 draft, the Nuggets took Donovan Mitchell and immediately had an all-star guard to pair with Nikola Jokic.
Can y'all imagine if Mitchell would have been with Jokic, man? That would be crazy.
Was already on the roster. Instead of keeping him, Denver moved him for Trey Lyles and Tyler London. Two players who have been completely...
This is bad. Like, when you look back at this, and I know Lyles at the time was such a young guy, but this is really bad.
Irrelevant. Meanwhile, Mitchell would become the biggest steal of this draft, averaging over 20 points per game as a rookie while leading the Jazz to a first-round win over the Thunder in his rookie season, while Mitchell himself outplayed an all-NBA level Russell Westbrook. Obviously, everything has worked out for Denver as they did win the 2023 NBA championship with Jamal Murray. But it would be interesting to go back and see what would happen if they had made the right move during this draft. In January of 2018, the Detroit Pistons made a move that simply made no sense, trading away Tobias Harris.
Like, what are we doing here? I'm just a little confused. What are we doing here? I'm trying to make this sense out of it. Detroit gave up picks. I'm just confused.
And a first-round pick that would become Miles Bridges for a past his prime Blake Griffin. Harris has proven to be a steady, solid player for the 76ers. Bridges was...
I mean, Tobias was like in his prime. Did they think Blake Griffin was that good?
Good until his off-court drama. But most importantly, at this point in time, Detroit should have been aiming for a rebuild. Whenever a team just puts themselves in no man's land, whenever they go out and do not commit to a rebuild and
they commit to like an aging, middle-of-the-pack team, what are we doing? What are we doing?
Trade for a Blake Griffin type, it just delays the inevitable. The most the Pistons got out of this Blake Griffin trade was a 41-41 record and a playoff appearance in 2019. They then ended up waiving Blake and have averaged less than 19 wins a year in their last 5 seasons. During their dynasty years, it seemed like the Golden State Warriors could do no wrong. Since then, though, it seems like they have made several costly mistakes, including drafting James Wiseman.
Wiseman is horrible, man.
In terms of trades,
he's horrible.
I understand Jordan Poole gets a lot of heat on the Washington Wizards. But trading Jordan Poole, who was an asset at the time for sure, for Chris Paul has to be the worst trade that Golden State has made.
This is a bad trade. Like, if you look back at it, it is bad. Because, I mean, look what they had to give up.
If the Warriors had just kept Poole, they would have had at least a very good bench scorer for them this season. Golden State ended up benching Klay Thompson, so maybe they would have even had a pretty solid starter. As also, we have to remember that Jordan Poole was a big-time contributor.
He was good with the Warriors, for sure. With more space, he was good.
Of their 2022 finals run. I know his stock is low right now, but that man earned his contract through helping the Warriors win a championship. Instead, Golden State traded him for a 37-year-old Chris Paul, an undersized point guard who had no chance at all of fitting in with Steph Curry, and he did not.
When they made the trade, it was weird to me. It was.
A player just because another player on your roster hit him is tough. And
Draymond Green is the problem.
For the Houston Rockets, as there was nothing good at all about this trade. Houston bet that when trading away Chris Paul, that a combo of James Harden and Russell Westbrook could
James Harden and Russell Westbrook as a combo is crazy. It's just crazy.
Salvage their team. And
who are these GMs, man? Who are they?
Harden and Russ, understandably to us all, did not work out in any way.
Obviously.
With this trade, Houston is likely to give up both their 2000.
Look at what they gave up. Look what they gave up.
2024 and 2026 first-round picks to the Oklahoma City Thunder, as they only have top 4 protections on them. Meanwhile, Russ, after just 1 season with this team, was traded for John Wall, who Houston paid to not play with their young core. They literally told him to stay home away from their roster. A very confusing turn of events, as if Houston had just leaned into the rebuild 1 season earlier, they would be better set up for their future, as they wouldn't owe their draft picks to the Thunder. The Indiana Pacers have made
are up.
So this is a bit of a deep dive, but we are going to find the worst move in trading away Caris LeVert. Caris is at the very least a nice rotation piece.
This is a bad trade for the Pacers, for sure, no doubt.
Fringe starter.
No, wait. I mean, they got back a bunch of draft capital, though. This isn't bad. This isn't bad. You got back a bunch of draft capital.
Caris LeVert. Caris is at the very least a nice rotation piece / fringe starter. He could be helping the Pacers this year. Instead, he averaged 14 points per game for the Cavaliers, a direct rival of the Pacers.
But they got a bunch of draft picks.
Back for Caris LeVert was Ricky Rubio, who did not even play on Indiana after this trade took place. And the pick they got was just the 26th pick in the 2023 draft. LeVert is also young enough where he could be helping.
Wait, who is the 26th pick in that draft? Wait, whoa. Let's rewind here. I want to see this. I want to see this package again. So they got the 26th pick in the 2023 NBA draft. Ben Shepherd. What are you talking about? Ben Shepherd had a great rookie season. I don't know, man. I don't know, man. This video does not sit well with me. Give me Ben Shepherd as a rookie over Karis LeVert's future. This Paul George trade is crazy.
Winning with their current core and bring in some big free agents, this trade will not go down as one of the worst in NBA history, but it does have the chance to. To be fair, if the Clippers did not trade...
Look at what they gave up. Ridiculous.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for Paul George, then they would not have gotten Kawhi Leonard, as that was the only reason that Kawhi was going.
Kawhi had to go, yes.
But also, to be fair, the current result of this trade is that the Clippers have done absolutely nothing of note with Kawhi and PG. Meanwhile, Shai has led a young Thunder core to the top seed in the Western Conference. There is not a single NBA fan who would not agree that the Clippers would just immediately trade right now Paul George for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Shai is just 25 years old.
Shai is literally one of the most valuable players in the whole league.
He was first team All-NBA last season, and the Clippers still owe several first-round draft picks to the Thunder.
This is an all-time bad
meaning
trade.
That if all does go wrong in a tank season, they are just going to be giving the Thunder an incredible asset. Los Angeles Lakers lost in the first round of the 2021 playoffs to the Phoenix Suns and panicked. The Suns made a run all the way to the NBA Finals, and making a trade in a panic state is almost always a...
Look at this trade. Like, look at this trade. This trade makes no sense. You want to talk about a panic. I'd take KCP over Russell Westbrook as it is, even back then.
Guaranteed sign for bad things to come. The Russell Westbrook trade to the Lakers would prove to be a disaster. Russell and LeBron seemingly hated playing with each other / just hated each other. The tension was almost awkward to watch, and the results spoke for themselves. In 2022, with Russ, the Lakers won just 33 games and took a massive leap backwards as Kentavious Caldwell-Pope emerged as a key player in the Denver Nuggets.
Just think about that. KCP is better with Bron than Russ. So, like, even forget the rest. It's a bad trade.
Championship run. Kyle Kuzma has established himself as a very solid scorer. We knew that when the Lakers traded him, and with the Wizards, he averaged over 21 points per game in 2020.
Can you imagine if the Lakers would have just kept Kuzma and KCP where they could be at now? And I know exterior stuff's gonna happen. You got to sign, like I get up, free agency, whatever. But if they still had KCP and Kyle Kuzma, they'd be one of the best teams in the NBA. If you put together a team of Bron, AD, KCP, Kuz, and then whoever that third guy is, you're going to have a good team.
3 and over 22 points per game in 2024. It is safe to say that just standing still and not making a panicked rush trade would have given them a lot more flexibility for the last few
ton more,
seasons. Man. Instead, as it stands now, the Lakers'
this was one of the worst trades. Yes, absolutely. This is horrible.
Memphis Grizzlies have fallen on very tough times recently. However,
it's injuries though. That's why.
Before the Ja Morant situation took place, the Grizzlies were the number 2 seed in the West and very well could have made a run all the way to the title if they had not made a huge mistake. While Steven Adams was a dependable center for this roster, Jonas Valanciunas at this point in their careers was simply just a better player.
I thought so too. They made it for the fit, but yeah, this is not a good trade for them.
This has averaged more points per game and rebounds per game than Adams every season since this trade.
Can y'all imagine Ja with Val and JJJ and the rest of them, man? Man, that would have been tough.
He spreads the floor more than Adams does. He's currently playing at a much higher level than Adams, as Adams is looking like he's about to be out of the NBA soon.
He's dealt with bad injuries,
Trey Murphy III has become a great player, and
Trey Murphy is the most valuable player of all of them.
Trey averaged almost 15 points per
He's
game
so
in
good.
2023 and in 2024. Memphis could use Trey alone to go along with their younger core. Valanciunas may have swung the needle in the 2022 Western Conference semifinals, where the Grizzlies lost in 6 games to a Warriors team that, if we remember, had no real center to guard him. The Miami Heat have been very solid with their trade history in recent years. So that means with the Heat, we're going to get a bit nitpicky. In March of 2021, the Heat traded Kelly Olynyk in a package for Victor Oladipo.
This is just like... I don't know. I guess.
They were fed up with Olynyk's inconsistency. They also hoped Oladipo would tap back into his
which I don't mind. You have high hopes for Victor Oladipo. You do.
Star play. Heat fans do not like Olynyk. I'm sure a Heat fan watching this is commenting hate right now on this video. However, directly after this trade, Kelly did average 19.
Olynyk solid. I don't know why he gets hate. He's solid. He averaged 19 and 8
points per game to end the year. As for Victor, he would play in just 4 games after this trade for the Heat in the 2021 season. Then in 2022 in 15 playoff games. There's no doubt he was a negative. He shot under 37% from the field.
Look at those stats. That's horrible. 27% from 3? Yikes.
With 1.7 turnovers to only 2.1 assists. So while Olynyk was certainly streaky, while he certainly had his flaws, he was also a stretch big that at least spread the court, and the Heat made their 2020 finals run with him as a key role player.
I think Olynyk is a solid role player. Maybe it's just me.
Points against the Lakers in a finals game. So again, maybe this is nitpicky, but also the Heat have been 10 out of 10 with their trades, and Oladipo just was not good with this team. When the Milwaukee Bucks moved Donte DiVincenzo, they were expecting Serge
DiVincenzo is so good too.
Ibaka to give them a lift as a veteran presence for a
good.
Playoff run. They traded a young player with a bright future for a hopeful veteran
Serge never worked out either.
presence. To be honest, this trade seemed questionable at the time, and Serge was a net negative for the Bucks, averaging just 3.7 minutes per game.
Look at this, man. Look at what he did. This is horrible.
The 2022 playoffs, and
He
in
didn't do
2023, he would play in just 16 games for Milwaukee and give them 0 playoff games.
Just
Donte
sad.
has emerged as a key piece for the New York
Dante's
Knicks, who
immaculate.
became a 2 seed in the Eastern Conference this season, ahead of the Bucks.
Shoots the
as
ball
Donte,
so
with his
well,
high
good
energy
defender.
play, finished the year averaging 15.5 points per game, and
He's
also
the real
finished
deal.
The year 9th in steal percentage. It is no question that Milwaukee would be very happy to have Donte on their current roster, as they have been on just a downward trend since winning the 2021 finals.
And you notice that, like, teams, I feel like, swing older and then they don't yet let these young guys develop. It's sad.
Winning just 49 games this season despite the addition of Damian Lillard. On paper, the Andrew Wiggins trade for the Minnesota Timberwolves looks horrible. Minnesota gave up both Wiggins, who went on to become an all-star starter for the Warriors, and a pick that became Jonathan Kuminga, who looks like the Warriors' most promising
This does look bad, but you remember, at the time, Wiggins was not doing it. Like, he was not playing very well.
young prospect for essentially D'Angelo Russell, who is no longer on their team. If you were to ask Timberwolves fans about this trade, though, they'd say good riddance to Wiggins.
Yep, exactly right. Kuminga hurts, though.
With no heart in Minnesota, that this was long overdue. So, objectively, I will still say this is the worst trade that they've made. You could decide.
Okay, so let me ask you this. If this is the worst trade, do you remember who we got for D'Angelo Russell? We got Mike Conley and Nickeil Alexander-Walker and 2 second-round picks. So, I mean, would you take Andrew Wiggins, Jonathan Kuminga, and whoever else, or Mike Conley, Nickeil, and 2 second-round? I mean, again, do whatever you want with that. I don't think it's a net negative. I just don't. Kuminga, I think, is fantastic. Andrew Wiggins is not that great anymore. Ask Warriors fans. I mean,
for yourself, though, as Minnesota does have another bad trade for us. In the 2019 draft, Minnesota gave up Cam Johnson in order to get Jared Culver.
This is the worst one. This is the worst one. I think the Jimmy Butler one is bad too, but this is the worst one for sure.
Culver has not had much of an NBA career at all. While there is no doubt that Cam Johnson would currently help out the Minnesota Timberwolves
big
roster,
time.
as he is a dependable 3-point shooter and scorer who averaged 13.4 points per game this season.
One hurts,
under
man.
28 minutes a game. The New Orleans Pelicans were in a rough spot with Drew Holiday, as he did want to be traded to a contender. However, looking at the trade package they got,
Drew Holiday is so good. That's the thing people need to understand. Drew Holiday is so good. No matter where he's at, he's so good.
Back for Drew, a man who would go on to be a vital piece of the Bucks championship run and is now so good for the Boston Celtics that Boston gave him a 4-year, $135 million.
I'm going to be honest. Drew might be the most underrated player of our generation. Am I crazy for saying that? Like, he is so good.
Extension. It's hard not to pick this as the Pelicans' worst recent trade. If the
And
Bucks
he's old.
completely fall apart and somehow these picks become valuable, I guess this trade could be salvaged. But here, we essentially have an all-star traded for Eric Bledsoe, who did nothing on the Pelicans.
Eric Bledsoe was supposed to be good, though. He was supposed to be good. Don't let that slip. He was supposed to be good. He was good in Milwaukee.
Pelicans roster and was out of the league 2 seasons later. And Steven Adams, who was already past his prime and did not contribute significantly. So yes, the Pels were in a position where they felt like they needed to move Drew, but that is the sign of a bad front office. Either move him when you could get him for great value, or you get this. The fact that the Pelicans got no young talent back for Drew Holiday, and that no one on this trade is still on their roster right now, is very tough, especially when the Pelicans are currently trying to contend themselves.
The Pels are just in a rough situation. If they'd had Drew, man, it'd be something.
The New York Knicks have easily one of the worst trades on this list. As yes, Kristaps Porzingis has bounced around. He has gone from Dallas.
What is this trade right here? What am I looking at? What is going on? Dennis Smith.
Washington and now to Boston. But in Boston, he has become one of the biggest storylines
so
in the
good.
NBA, as he is clearly a dominant third option for a team that ran away with the Eastern Conference Finals.
KP
and could
is
very well
good.
win the entire NBA championship. New
And he's not even
traded
playing.
Porzingis because at the time he had some drama and did not fit in well with the culture roster that included Carmelo Anthony and Phil Jackson, which sounds like a fever dream type statement, but it's true. New York chose to cut ties with Porzingis and instead chose to bet it all on essentially the potential of
Dennis Smith Jr. Let that thing sink into you guys. Dennis Smith Jr.
Smith Jr., who they could not have been more wrong about. Dennis would go from averaging 14.7 points per game with the Knicks in 2019 to just 5.5 in 2020. And it's not like the Knicks needed to tank to get into the position they are currently in. They did get a number 3 draft pick in RJ Barrett, but RJ did not work out for the team, and they ended up moving him for an underwhelming trade package.
He's gone now too.
Built their success by signing free agents such as Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson, creating their core through free agent moves and trades.
The Jalen Brunson signing literally saved them, and Dante DiVincenzo is fantastic as well.
It now has them near the top of the East. In some alternate universe, with Porzingis being that top,
can y'all imagine KP with Brunson?
Boston, maybe the Knicks could have been at the top of the East themselves. The Oklahoma City Thunder are at the top of the Western Conference and
what's
have
their
emerged
bad
as the
trade?
best young team in the NBA. As the Thunder have a big 3 young core in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Chet Holmgren, and Jalen Williams. That does not mean though that with all of the draft picks the Thunder have hoarded, that they made 0 mistakes. In fact, they may have made a massive one.
The Şengün, yes, this is bad. This is bad, man. They could have Şengün.
The Thunder drafted Alperen Şengün and
so
ended up
good.
trading him for more first-round picks instead of keeping a man who has become one of the most promising young players in basketball.
He's
At just
so
21
good.
years old for the Rockets this season, Şengün averaged 21.1 points, 9.3 rebounds, and 5.3 assists per game, and was 17th in the league in box score plus minus. So while the Thunder are certainly doing fine without him, the fact that Chet is so versatile and that Şengün is such a great passer really makes you think if the Thunder could have even been better with an even brighter future if they had kept Şengün. The Orlando Magic are now a legitimate playoff team, and with
the Magic have such a bright young core. They really do.
Paulo Banchero and Franz Wagner, the Magic could definitely use a top-tier glue guy / veteran such as Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon's time in Orlando was very under.
I mean, is this trade package good? I mean, they thought RJ would be decent, but they just really didn't get much for Aaron Gordon, who at the time was really good.
But
and he's still
this trade
good.
was even worse. The Magic helped the Denver Nuggets win a championship as Gordon played a massive role for Denver in their championship run. And in return, Orlando got RJ Hampton, who is off their roster and averaged 1.3 points per game this season, and Gary Harris, who is currently out of the NBA. Gordon has proven he is...
Man, chill on Gary Harris. I think he's fine, man. Gary Harris is okay. Is Gary Harris at... Wait. Gary Harris? Wait, he is not out of the NBA? Am I wrong? No, he's on the Orlando Magic. What is this man talking about?
0.3 points per game this season, and Gary Harris, who is currently out of the NBA.
What? I was gonna say, I thought he was playing for the Orlando Magic in the playoffs. What are we talking about? You had me second guessing myself, Korzemba. You don't know ball.
Gordon has proven he is a high-level starter on a championship caliber roster. That is a player you do not sleep on, and the type of return they got back for him is simply awful. Philadelphia 76ers could have re-signed Jimmy Butler. He was all for staying with the team until he heard that the front office was openly asking people if they thought they could control him. Jimmy took extreme exception and offense to this, understandably, stating that he is a grown man, no one needs to control him, and also, who is Philly to be asking that question, as Ben Simmons at the time was refusing to practice his jump shot. So Philadelphia decided to trade away Jimmy, and the return...
Look what they got. Look who they got.
The return they got was basically nothing. Josh Richardson played just one...
Josh Richardson for Jimmy Butler. Oh, I mean, man.
1 year for the team, and the 76ers dug their own grave here. As if they had kept Jimmy, they would have had the lead ball handler they needed in order to reach the deeper rounds of the playoffs.
Jimmy with Embiid would have worked. I don't know how they didn't win a championship when they had him, prime Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris, though. I don't know, but... They should have kept Jimmy, man. And I don't like Jimmy.
But instead, they bet on Ben Simmons, which of course was one of the worst bets you could ever make. And even worse, Philly's best chance at a title during the trust the process era currently was in 2019 with Jimmy Butler when they lost in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference semifinals to the Raptors on a Kawhi Leonard buzzer beater.
That was a crazy
the Raptors
shot.
would go on to win the championship that season. Joel Embiid has never played in the NBA Finals. Jimmy, since this trade, has made the finals twice in Miami.
That's crazy to think about.
Decision by Philly
so
front
crazy
office
to think
that has
about.
cost them dearly. The Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal trades for the Phoenix Suns could also cost them dearly, as they owe all of their first-round picks to other teams for the foreseeable future. But as for the here and now, we find Desmond Bane pop up again, as in 2019, the Suns gave away the pick that would become Desmond Bane for Aaron Baines and Ty Jerome.
Aaron Baines and Ty Jerome, man. We're giving up first-round picks for Aaron Baines and Ty Jerome. I know that first-round pick isn't going to be a great pick, but come on, man, Aaron Baines.
Trade just did not need to happen. Both Baines and Jerome did absolutely nothing for the Suns whatsoever. If Phoenix did keep their pick and landed Bane, they would not have needed to trade for Bradley Beal. They would not have needed to mortgage their future even more. And also, they very well could have had a player that put them over the top in their recent playoff failures. Maybe we would have been looking at a Phoenix Suns championship. But instead, they gave away this pick for essentially nothing, and it became a pick that really ended up biting them. The Portland Trail Blazers could have moved CJ McCollum much earlier than they did, which is what makes this trade even worse than it became. Whenever you have a situation where you could have traded a player a few years earlier and instead are trading him now for a next to nothing trade package, how do we not blame the front office for that?
I mean, CJ in his peak was really good.
We do blame them. The biggest problem with this specific trade is that the Blazers moved CJ and essentially got nothing of good worth in return. Josh Hart would be the best player in this trade for them. He's playing on the Knicks though. Nickeil Alexander-Walker.
Nickeil was what, like the number 11th pick or something? Like he had a bright future
was
still.
seen as a promising young player, but he is underwhelmed and he's no longer on the roster. Didi Louzada is no longer in the NBA.
I don't even know who that
is.
is.
The best part about this trade for the Blazers is seemingly that it's allowed them to enter tank mode, but at the very least, if you are going to be tanking, you'd like to get some
more draft
assets back for a near all-star type in CJ McCollum. The Blazers failed to do that. If they had traded him years earlier, they very well could have found a much better fit for Damian Lillard. They could have had a roster that pushed for a title during the Damian Lillard era.
They had some good years though. I don't want to say it's totally out. Like they had some good years.
Sacramento Kings, I know this is going to be one of the most controversial trades on this list. With a 7-year time frame though,
I don't like this, man.
Some controversy. And when the Kings decided to trade Tyrese Halliburton,
I don't think this is a bad trade. And I know a lot of people are going to get mad, but I really don't. Sabonis has been great for them. So,
along with Buddy Hield in a package that centered around Domantas Sabonis, they did so with one goal in mind: to finally make the playoffs. As to be fair, from 2007 to 2022, the Sacramento Kings racked up the longest playoff drought in NBA history.
And they made the playoffs.
Just making the playoffs after this.
And Sabonis is good, man.
Trade is a win, I guess. However, we're back to that dreaded middle ground again. With this trade, the Kings gave away Halliburton, who has emerged on the Indiana.
It is true. They're back in that middle ground right now. That's true.
Pacers as a true franchise player, and now they are locked into a duo of De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. The Kings are not good enough to compete for a title. They ended up playing in the play-in game this season. They're also not bad enough to get top draft picks to help their roster. Halliburton has raised Indiana's record from 25 wins before he was there to 47 wins this season with a playoff berth. There's no doubt that when Sacramento traded him, Halliburton's trade value was nowhere near.
It's not where it's at now.
Where it is now.
It's
Sacramento
true.
didn't have to do anything. Instead, they made a trade that.
But it was hard because you had so much backcourt depth back then. It was just hard.
Sticking them in the middle to lower end.
But now they are in the middle ground. I mean, it's tough.
I do not think that is a great place to be at all. The San Antonio Spurs are in a great situation now.
Absolutely.
They have Victor Wembanyama, so I'm sure they wouldn't change anything. However, of course, getting Wemby was far from any kind of guarantee back in 2018. And in 2018, Kawhi Leonard made it clear to the Spurs that he no longer wanted to play on their team. And so San Antonio, instead of embracing a rebuild and looking to get young talent back,
this is bad. Like, this is bad because Danny Green was decent back then.
Plus a ton of picks, chose to trade Kawhi to the Raptors for DeMar DeRozan. This trade is simply baffling, and the results showed themselves right in front of our faces immediately. With DeMar now on the Spurs, they became that middle-of-the-pack team that we've talked about a lot in this video.
I feel like that's DeRozan's, like, the name of DeMar DeRozan, middle of the ground.
Just breaking this down honestly, they traded
on the court
legitimate superstar
mid-range
who could carry a team to an NBA championship for a lesser player in DeMar, an all-star but not a superstar. No disrespect meant for DeMar, but after this trade, in 2019, the Spurs won 48 games and lost in the first round of the playoffs. That was the best thing that came out of this, a first-round playoff loss. As following that season, the Spurs won 32 games, 33 games, and 34 games, finally realized this was not going to work, and then, after delaying the the inevitable rebuild.
They should have beat,
for
yeah,
years,
Ben rebuilt.
they
Look at
decided
Bryn
to
Forbes.
tank. So Spurs fans had 4 years of their lives wasted with a team that was as middle tier as it comes. They did get Wemby though, so it luckily all worked out for them. For the Toronto Raptors, I'm taking my own leap of faith as this trade did just happen this year. However, Pascal Siakam has been great for the Indiana Pacers. He's been
they don't like this trade? I mean, I don't think it's bad. Siakam is really good, yes.
Pacers. He's been a great, consistent player for a
Bruce
long
Brown's
time. This
not
year, he
that
averaged 21.3 points, 7.8
great,
rebounds, and 3.7 assists per game, as Indiana has happily paired him up with Tyrese Halliburton. If the Raptors wanted to trade Pascal, they could have done so in the past few seasons and gotten a much better return. Personally, as I've said in this video,
but they got a lot, man. They got a lot.
Adds to a bad trade for me. If you are now trading a player at the wrong time, that is your own mistake as a front office. The Raptors went from one of the most bright and promising young teams in the NBA to a team that sunk to near the bottom of the East this year, and in this trade they got really no good young players in return. Bruce Brown is a solid role player. Kyra Lewis, though, averages 3.8 points per game. Jordan Nwora puts up...
I'm not worried about them. I'm worried about the draft capital.
7.9 points a game. All-star level players such as Pascal Siakam are not easy to come by. The Pacers have done a great job.
They got multiple picks
two now in Halliburton and Pascal. The Raptors, like a lot of teams on this list, are not a free agent destination team. Trading Pascal when he was at his lowest in terms of trade value is very likely to turn out to be...
But Korzemba's got to realize that's a lot of times what happens. Like when something doesn't work, then they got to trade him. You're not going to trade something when it's working.
Tremendously bad for them. They basically gave an all-star talent here for next to nothing. We have two
teams.
It's
not next to nothing.
I did say the Kings were the most controversial trade on this list, but maybe this is the most controversial trade. As when trading away Rudy Gobert, it seemed like everyone was on...
Yes, it's bad for the Jazz. Absolutely. Good, Korzemba. If you look at what the Utah Jazz are going to get from the Timberwolves, they got a pretty middle-of-the-road pick last year. I don't even know who it ended up being. I don't know what it ended up being. I mean, the Timberwolves are probably going to be pretty good in the next couple years. My whole thing is this. When you're looking at this, Walker Kessler is the only real valuable piece.
Utah's side. Rudy, for whatever reason, is the most hated man in the NBA. But if we're being realistic, he's about to win his 4th Defensive Player of the Year award. And in Minnesota, there is no doubt about the impact he has made on that team.
100%.
The Timberwolves, a team no one expected to be near the top of the West, became the 3 seed in the Western Conference this season, even with the Karl Anthony Towns injury, as Rudy finished the year 1st in defensive rating, 1st in defensive win shares, and 5th in offensive rating. Again, Rudy's impact cannot be denied. The Utah Jazz did not have to trade Rudy. For Donovan Mitchell, they got back an all-star in Lauri Markkanen. For the current Defensive Player of the Year in Rudy, the best player they got back is Walker Kessler.
One thing I think Korzemba undervalues is draft capital. I don't think he thinks draft picks matter at all.
Who, after a promising year 1, seemingly regressed in year 2 and averaged just 8.1 points and 7.5 rebounds per game. With the Minnesota Timberwolves near the top of the Western Conference now too, the multiple picks that Utah will get will likely all
not be that good. I get this part of it.
Mid to deep 20s. Utah has made themselves into a middle-of-the-pack team that is not a free agent destination, and I think Rudy's impact on the Wolves is speaking for itself. Finishing off this list, we have one of the worst trades, as the Washington Wizards may have handed the Boston Celtics a championship this year. Kristaps Porzingis has become one of the NBA's biggest
KP is really good
storylines this season. Finally playing for the right type of system, he has been unstoppable, and Boston is headed into the playoffs as the NBA Finals favorites according to Vegas. The package that Washington got in return here is gross. It's so bad. Danilo Gallinari would have been a great get 8 years ago. The Wizards
he's old. He's just old.
Did use him and Mike Muscala to go out and get Marvin Bagley, who has been underwhelming / a bust everywhere he has played. Washington also got Julian Phillips, who they...
I mean, you got to try for these young pieces, though, if you're rebuilding. You got to try.
2 second-round picks. And Tyus Jones is a solid role player, but that's really the best they got. They got a solid role-playing point guard
for KP, who is extremely good.
Kristaps Porzingis. Washington did not need to make this move. They felt their hand was forced because Porzingis could leave in the offseason. However, that max contract money for Porzingis very well could have spoken to him. And on top of all of this, we have yet again another situation where a front office could have traded a player when his trade value value was high, last season Porzingis would have gotten a much better haul, but instead they waited until this year to trade a 20.
And that's the thing, you can't wait until too late. He's right on that, but at the same time, when the player's playing good and things are going well, you don't need to trade him. You don't want to.
8-year-old all-star level talent for next to nothing. If you're going to commit to the tank, at least get some young talent and picks back. It was the Boston Celtics who got a first-round pick out of this deal. And so there we have it. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you are still here, please make sure to subscribe and turn on post.
Shout out Korzemba, man, the GOAT with this stuff. But Gary Harris out of the league? What are we talking about? Drop a like on the video, subscribe if you're new. As always, man, I love you guys. Have a blessed day.